Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, in this video I'm going to show you how to paint pink, or at least how I paint pink. So as you can see from this Chaos Emperor's Children pad that I've got here on my Space Wolf, this is the end result that I'm going to be going for. So I've got a nice light to dark pink coloration there, and I'm going to do another piece of armour on my latest unit, which is here. On his leg, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, just a little note, this is a bean bag which I'm just resting my hand on because it makes it steadier basically. So the colours that I'm going to be using, Screamer Pink, going to be using Pink Horror, and I'm going to be using Emperor's Children. Now it's fair to say you don't necessarily need Emperor's Children because you could just add some white to the Pink Horror to give you that final highlight. I like to use the actual colours because I find it gives me a bit more consistency, especially when I'm painting it on a sort of whole army. If I was just doing an individual mini, then maybe yes, I'd just mix some whites with that. But yeah, I'm going to go for those three colours. So that's the three colours I'm going to use in this tutorial. So let's get this guy out. Now I've put some paint on my my wet palette already, and I've mixed it with a little bit of Lahim medium, basically the glaze medium. Not too much, just to make it a little bit watery, so it's not too thick. The last thing you want is to put too much thick paint on. So we're actually going to build this up in layers. Now this is where it can get a little bit concerning actually when you're painting quite light colours, is that the layers, when you first put them on, they look awful. And the key thing here is, although they look awful, is not to go over the paint whilst it's drying. So put the paint on and then just leave it. Now at first it's going to look terrible, it's going to look really messy, it's going to look like there's loads of big brush strokes everywhere, but as long as you haven't got too thick paint, those brush strokes are not going to show when it dries. It will look inconsistent, but that's why we're going to do several layers. So I'm actually going to do probably about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 layers. It depends how it goes on. We're obviously going over black, which I've particularly had to do because of the rest of the army that I'm painting, the rest of the colours, sorry, that I'm painting. Obviously if you're going over white, the principle would be the same, but you may not necessarily have to do the same amount of layers. So that's the first section done. You can see it looks terrible there, but that's okay because this is literally just the first layer. Now I'm also going to do this section on his boot on this one. Now if I do stop talking, certainly for a long period of time, I'll just fast forward the video, but hopefully I'll keep talking enough. Okay, now that's the first layer down. Now, whatever you do, regardless of how that looks, don't touch it. Just let that fully dry before you do anything else. Now, I'm obviously being fairly messy around the edges of this. That's fine for me because I'm just going to be touching up this with black anyway. But yeah, I'm going to let that dry, and I'll come back for the next layer once that's done. Okay, so that's dry, so now I'm just going to go in with the second layer. Now the brush that I'm using here is a size 1. I mean, you can use whatever size brush you feel comfortable with. I like to use smaller brushes myself, even if I'm base coating. I know it does take longer, but I find I can get a nice neat base coat. And base coating is actually so important. If you can get a good base coat down, it just makes the rest of the paint job so much easier. So as you put on the second coat, you'll notice it will start to build up to a slightly more even pink, but it won't be perfect still because it's still pretty thin paint, and obviously it's a pretty thin colour as well. Just going to go over this boot section. Okay, once again, going to let that dry. Okay, that's dry, and not actually waiting too long, to be fair, between these little clips. It's just easier for me to stop the camera. I'm going to go in now with the third coat, and this is where the colour really should start to come together. Really should actually look like the effect that you want. It may still be a little bit patchy, but it should be getting there now. So just going in here, Normally, to be fair, I would actually be slightly neater with these coats, but where I'm doing it on the camera, I'm not in my normal painting position, so not quite as neat as I would be, to be fair. But there you go. So just do this side of the foot. Okay, so that's really starting to take shape now. Let that dry and just have another look at it once it's dry. Okay, that's dry. It's really starting to take shape now, but still needs another, probably I would say 2 more layers, but let's put this one on and see how it looks after that. So once again, nice thin coat, just spread it on. Only touch that wet paint once if you can help it. And yeah, it's going on quite nicely. Let's just do this piece around the back. Coming round here. And that is starting to take shape now. So it is a little bit more of a patience. I suppose it's similar to painting any other light colour. I mean, you'd paint white pretty much the same way, although you may do it on a grey base rather than actually black. Okay, getting there now. Just let that dry. Probably one last coat. Okay, yeah, that's nearly done. I'm going to go over one more time just to make sure that it's very nice, even coverage. So it's, you know, it does take a long time, but it's well worth doing these layers just for the base coat, I know, but it will really help us in the future. Okay, the foot doesn't need another coat because it's such a small piece. It's usually the bigger armours, the bigger sections that you need to do more coats on. So that is done. Let that dry and I'll come back and we'll do the next stage. Okay, so now we're ready for the wash, and I'm going to use basically a red wash, so don't forget to give it a good old shake before you use it. Just going to open up my lid. Now, you have a couple of options. The first option is just to wash the whole of the pink, and then go back over with the base coat and just build up the original layer, leaving the wash in the recesses. Now personally, I prefer to just go in and just literally put the wash in the recesses. Just find it's almost a waste of time putting it all over than having to go back up with the base coat. So I'm going to use a very small brush. This is actually a 000 brush, but it is one of my old ones. I know that because I've got some grey paint on the end, which is how I mark my old brushes. And the reason for that is the wash doesn't ruin them, but it does sometimes make the bristles go a bit hard. So all I'm going to do is take a bit of this wash, and I'm literally just going to put the wash in the recesses, a bit more on there. There you go, just in the recesses of the pink. So that's, on this case, it's just around the outer edge. Some recesses there. Bring that round. There are some things that, like for example, when you're washing silver, metal work, then yes, you would just wash that all over. But in many cases, I prefer just washing in the recesses, just so much better. And when I wash the grey on these guys, I am going to be just washing in the recesses of that as well. So just go around this little arrow. And just round the top. Of course, I've still got to tidy up that black, like I said previously. But I'll just do that right at the end once I've got all the pink done. Then it just doesn't matter if I do happen to go over the pink. Right, so that's that bit, and now I'm just going to go around the boot. So again, just in the recesses. There you go, done. So I'm going to let that dry and then we'll come back to the next stage. Okay, so we are now ready for the next layer, and we're going to use the Emperor's Children. Now what I have done since the last take is I've gone over the black and I've just tidied the black up slightly just to make this next stage a touch easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over now with a few coats of the Emperor's Children. I've watered down the paint very slightly, not too much. We don't want it like really watery, but we want it thin enough that when we do a stroke with the paintbrush, it doesn't leave a paintbrush like raised mark. Okay, so let's do this. So we're going to continue basically going over that pink, and we're going to not go right up to the edge. So we're just going to leave the recess that we've just washed exposed. Now the key once again is to do one thin layer. It's going to look really awful at first. Let that dry before you go over it again. So you can see there that looks absolutely awful. That's fine, that's just the first coat. Just coming around here. Okay, first coat done. Just going to let that dry. As I said, it's really rough. It doesn't really matter. You know, if you haven't gone right to the edges, we're going to fill that in afterwards. The key thing is to get some pink down, ready just to start building the colour up. So I'm going to let that dry and do some more in a second. Okay, so time for the next layer. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to start from the outside, just, as I said, leaving the original base coat just on the edge. I'm just going to tidy up the outside and then just bring the paint inwards to that big armour plate. Just going to basically sort of tidy up the edges really a bit. Just spread that paint out nice and even whilst it's wet, but obviously once it's dry or drying, don't touch it because you will leave brush marks. Okay, starting to look a little bit better. I've gone down my 000 brush because I've got a really small little join I need to do. So I'm just going to do that now with this very small brush. Okay, so that's that one. Now I'm just going to let that dry. I said the paint is starting to build up, but it still needs another, I would say probably 2 or 3 layers, just like I'm doing now. I'll be back with some more. Okay, so coming up now to the next layer, and this time I'm going to go back to the middle sort of armour plate and just concentrating now on building up that colour so it's not patchy, so we get a nice smooth pink. From then on, once we've done this, we're going to blend in the next layer into this layer, and that's where the pink will really start to look good. Okay, that's that one done. We're nearly there now, just a little bit patchy on this big plate, but most of it's looking pretty cool. So yeah, now that's dry, let's go in again, some more paint. Okay, so that's done. We are now ready for the next layer. So yeah, more to come in a second. Okay, right, I've just watched back those last clips on this next layer, and I actually said that I was using Emperor's Children, but that was wrong. I was using Pink Horror. Now I will put an annotation there, but just in case you're only listening and not watching, that was Pink Horror, that layer. So now we are going to use Emperor's Children, and I've got both of those 2 paints on my palette, and I've added a little bit more water to them just to make them a little bit more, well, watery, and we're going to try and blend these up. So first of all, you need to pick out where you want the highlights to be. So just physically do a look really where the light would be coming down, where it would be hitting. So as it comes down here, it would be hitting this area here. Probably have a little bit of light coming down here, obviously on the top of the shoe. So that's how I'm working out where to put the paint. Now I'm going to put the paint on. Now I'm going to start off with the light colour, the Emperor's Children, and I'm going to put the paint where I want the highlights to be. So just one layer, just going to sort of spread it out a little bit, but we're not too worried about blending in anything at the moment. Just going to put in the paint effectively where we want the highlights to be. So on top of the boots here, and then on the top of this section, then on the inside of here, and on the back. Oh, just went on the black there, that's alright, we can touch this up. Okay, so now we're going to do the actual blend itself. So we've worked out where our highlights are going to be, and I'm going to go back in with that light pink, and I'm going to just go back over, just building up a nice light colour. spreading it out. And now I'm going to go back with the base colour. I'm going to start with the base colour on the base section, and then I'm just going to spread that into the light pink. I'm then going to just basically spread those two colours together. Now it's not something you're going to be able to just blend straight away. You're going to have to probably do 2 or 3 goes at doing this. Again, to start with the light colour at the top, get that base colour there, and then just spread it into the light colour. There you go, that's really starting to take shape. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. Actually, I see the battery's low. I'm just going to change batteries. Okay, so I'm back with a fresh battery. Right, I'm going to go back over that again. So once again, I'm going to do the light pink first. Then I'm going to go into the dark pink. Just spreading them into each other. Let that dry, I can come back to that. I'm going to move on to a different area. So top of the boot's going to be hit with the light, and then I'm going to blend that into the sort of side areas where I think maybe the light probably wouldn't hit. Now on this little inside section. It's really difficult painting on camera, I have to say. I haven't got an ideal setup, but hopefully you're enjoying the video. Okay, going back with the base coat, start on the base coat area and then just bring it into that light pink. And then just spread it out together. There you go, looking pretty cool. Go to this back section. I'm going to quickly tidy up that black as I've got some black paint here. Right, let's do the pink again. So we've got some light pink here. Just blend that into the other pink. It's just then a case of letting it dry, checking it out when it's dry, and if you think it needs another going over, then just go back over again. Do this as many times as you need until you feel it's got a nice transition. There you go, done. Now I know the camera and the lighting and everything isn't the best, so what I do is I take a few still pictures of that piece of armour there so you can get a closer look at the final results. Like I said, I really hope that you enjoyed the video, hopefully it was useful to you, and as always, thanks for watching.